We're losing other species on Earth at an unprecedented rate. With such a loss of biodiversity, plants, animals, and insects, that we're finding ourselves in a whole another era of large-scale extinction, the sixth extinction. The current view of most scientists is more related to the rate of extinction rather than the exact number. That we're losing anywhere between 1,000 and 10,000 times the background rate, that which we've seen for the previous several thousands of years, which used to be 2 to 4 species going extinct. So why all the extinctions? And what are we doing about it? Nearly all concerned researchers agree that the primary cause of rapid biodiversity loss we're witnessing on our planet today is by pastured and grazing livestock operations on land, loss of habitat, and by unsustainable fishing practices in our oceans, loss of habitat. There are only 300 Mediterranean monk seals left in the world. What we are doing to other forms of life on Earth is unparalleled in the history of our planet, where one species, us, is causing the mass extinction of nearly all other species. It reminds me of this somewhat well-known and very appropriate comment that if all insects on Earth disappeared, within 50 years, all life on Earth would end. However, if all human beings disappeared from Earth, within 50 years, all forms of life would flourish. One of the most pressing concerns that we have today regarding sustaining our life and future life on Earth is our supply of fresh water. We don't have much, and we're using all of it. Now, sure, it's a regional issue, but aquifers and wells are already drying up. There's a growing gap between worldwide demand for water and what's really available. With so much demand, there's expected to be a 40% shortage in water supply in just 15 years. Now, what you decide to eat has every single thing to do with this. Scientists are very concerned about water scarcity, but I think it's more a matter of water management. Instead of focusing on technologies, we should be first looking at choices. Is this a good choice? How about this choice? Are any of these good choices? As compared to say these. Do you know that it requires more than 400 gallons of water? More than 400 gallons of water just to slaughter one cow or one pig, grass-fed or not, in addition to these other figures for the act itself. And we slaughtered 145 million cows and pigs last year just in the U.S. Much of our fresh water is not fully renewable in our lifetime, and it's certainly not infinite in quantity. An area of tremendous misuse of water and land combined is in the state of California, where, among other things, they use 900,000 acres of land to produce alfalfa. That's not alfalfa sprouts. It's alfalfa. That's a staggering amount of land. Anyone here from California? Yeah, well, why do you do that? Why do you do that? Because it requires 1 to 2 million gallons of water per year to irrigate just one of those 900,000 acres. And guess what? They all get irrigated. Every one of them. Every acre. It's sadly true. So guess where all that alfalfa and water in its use? It goes to livestock. 5% to horses, the rest to livestock. 75% to dairy cows. Although water on Earth remains constant, the consumptive form it happens to be in does not. 4 out of 5 people now live within 30 miles of a water-damaged area, meaning soon to run out or polluted. There are nearly 300 transboundary river and waterways on Earth where multiple countries share vital running water supply. As we see water shortages occurring over the next 15 years, we will surely see droughts, famine, human sickness, and then we'll see conflicts, social unrest, and even wars. Indeed, those living downstream will be fiercely battling those living upstream for their water rights. Climate change will make these matters worse, but not cause them. Food choice and virtual water trading through food, especially animals and animal products, will play a much, much larger role than energy or fossil fuel use. Well, the average household in our country uses 50,000 gallons of water in 1 year, according to the EPA. Indoor use, about the same outdoors. That's quite a bit of water. And it's what we're focused on in times of drought, how to reduce this. The average person in our country, though, consumes 206 pounds of meat in 1 year, divided between 46 pounds of pig and 58 pounds of cow, 102 pounds of chicken and turkey, in addition to the 248 eggs and 616 pounds of dairy products, which equates to 405,000 gallons of water per person per year, just to support that animal product diet. So now, a more accurate view that the EPA should be aware of and broadcast is that every household of 3 people in the U.S., well, they use over 1 million gallons of water in 1 year. Not 50,000. 1.2 million gallons. And 96% of that outrageous water use is from their choice to eat animals. So whenever there's a drought or water shortage anywhere in our country, which there are, and certainly will be, does our government or your community ever step up and declare a state of rationing or eliminated meat or dairy? Why not? Why shouldn't they? So then, these are the timelines for fresh water. And it's not anything that we can feel comfortable with. Over 90% of the world chooses food that's unhealthy for them and for our planet. And here's some of the reasons why. All are significant, but most overwhelming is the powerful combination of cultural and political interactions. We begin solving this with a massive and swift education campaign, and we need to reverse the trend of tiptoeing around this subject by the media and by other authors and by other educators and by many of the new food movements where we get most of our information from. Thank you. You know, I mentioned earlier that buying local has little to do with sustainability other than from an economic standpoint. I mean, it's a solid, very solid idea to help nearby farmers, but in fact, transportation is only responsible for 4%. 4% of all the fossil fuels used and all the greenhouse gases emitted in the entire food production process. It's much more relevant to view this a different way, the cradle-to-grave assessment. Instead of greenhouse gases, which are important, what are all the detrimental effects to get those food items to our plate? To calculate that, well, you've got to go back to where these food items begin. You've got to go back to their origins. Using a life cycle analysis, you'd see very quickly that eating non-local but all plant-based foods have minimal sustainability concerns versus eating animal products produced by your next-door neighbor that contribute these percentages to the many aspects of global depletion. An important part of our solution process will be the development of new agricultural systems. Community-supported agriculture, farm-to-table, small and local farms, real food, slow food, organic, biodynamic, traceable, urban agriculture, all only make sense if they don't involve animals. Eventually, the wealth of any nation will be redefined in terms of natural resources and strength of its sustainable systems. Our survival will depend on how quickly and accurately we begin to define this word sustainable. We'll see sustainability become a growth opportunity and a risk management strategy for businesses, essentially transforming economics. Futurists ask, what one new idea will change the world drastically in the next century? Well, will it be new nanotechnology? Maybe. Transhumanism and robotics? Traceability within businesses, or even renewable energy systems? In terms of ensuring our existence, that one transforming idea that futurists are asking about is for all humans on Earth to eat only plant-based foods. And then there's our pitiful farm bill. Sorry, but I don't know another way to describe it. It was locked up in political disagreement and indecision and then sequestration. What a tremendous opportunity this was, and still is, for our country to solve a number of problems we have, ranging from our fiscal cliff to our climate change cliff to our healthcare crisis cliff. In many ways, they're all the same cliff. It's been frankly difficult for me to watch our policymakers over the last year spend so much time and our money trying to construct policies based on the improper definitions of the phrase healthy food. Many of the major changes that were proposed for this bill were aimed at taking away economic support from factory farms and giving more to small farmers, thinking that by itself will produce healthier food. It won't. Essentially, it'll be shifting funds from large meat and dairy operations to small meat and dairy operations. That's never going to work. So I have another solution dealing with accountability, which will get us on track much quicker, and it's what I call the eco and health risk tax. Now, you're all familiar with the nutrition fact label. This happens to be ground beef or ground cow, something the average consumer would purchase. And on this label, you can see that half the calories are from fat. And most of those are from saturated fat, even a gram of trans fat and quite a bit of cholesterol. Now, all that's not so good. But you don't see not so good anywhere on the label, do you? I don't. It also has quite a bit of protein, but it's of the type of protein that's implicated then in a number of disease states. And you certainly don't see what resource it took to produce whatever's inside that package. Well, consumers need to know this. So we introduced the eco and health risk factors. And in the event that these numbers are a little too complicated, we simply do this. We put a little notation on the bag, and it could say not so good or not a good choice, or in the future, when all this becomes voice activated, a little Siri voice, a little Siri voice could pop out and say, slap your hand, and say, I wouldn't do that if I were you. That's not a very good Siri voice, but this is a good start. But it's most important to reflect these factors into costs. Now, this is not a carbon tax. It's not a soda tax, which would vastly understate the problem and therefore wouldn't work. It's an eco and health risk tax, something we've never done before, because the true cost to our environment and to our own health, which is invaluable, has always been externalized. It's never been directly paid for, with our heads always turned in the other direction. We'll eventually need to develop this top-down taxation approach to our decisions about food very soon, as well as a bottom-up or grassroots educational approach for a number of reasons. And eventually this might happen, establishing a shame-honor relationship with eating meat, using mass cooperation as a norm.